Hi everyone, my name is Cody and today's an exciting day because it's planting day. And so this year I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be trying out the square foot gardening method only on a much larger scale. And so for those of you who don't know, square foot gardening was invented by a man named Mel Bartholomew. And he was a civil engineer who was unsatisfied with the inefficiencies associated with row gardening. And so he wanted to maximize space. And so he invented this new gardening method known as square foot gardening. And what it basically entails is planting using square feet and planting certain numbers of certain types of plants within those square feet. So some plants are really small, so you can fit 16 plants in a square foot, or some plants are you can fit 9 of them or 4 of them, or some plants are really large and you can only fit 1 of them in a square foot. And so square foot gardening is typically done in smaller raised beds. Normally a 4 foot by 4 foot or a 4 foot by 8 foot raised bed. But I had found nothing really online or anything about planting using the square foot gardening method in a large vegetable plot like this one, which Mel actually spoke against because he was kind of against planting in huge plots of land, and he was all for planting in smaller raised beds. But what would happen if I take the same principles of planting in square foot style only on a large plot like this? And so I think I could potentially really maximize the amount of food production you could be getting out of these gardens instead of planting in rows and using the square foot method. And so I think for this garden I'm going to be planting it actually in a kind of a hybrid style. Some of the vegetables will be planted square foot and others will be planted using rows or just the regular spacing. Mainly because some plants I have a lot of seeds for and other plants I don't have enough seeds for to be planting using the square foot method. And so in his book, square foot gardening was very much like a polyculture style. Like in those smaller raised beds, you would have like a whole bunch of different kinds of plants all planted in there. But I think I'm going to still be planting in my regular blocks of plants. For example, carrots, potatoes, that sort of thing. I will still be planting them square foot style spacing. And so this is called a seeding square. So this is designed for square foot gardening, and it is color coded. So these red holes are for planting plants that require 16 plants per square foot. So plants like beets, carrots, green onions, parsnips, radish, that sort of thing. And then the yellow holes are for planting plants that require 9 per square foot. So like beans, bok choy, celery, mustard, peas, spinach, that sort of thing. And the blue holes are for 4 per square foot. So like corn, kohlrabi, lettuce, sunflowers, Swiss chard, that sort of thing. And the orange one in the center is for bigger plants that can only fit 1 per square foot. So like broccoli, cabbage, eggplants, kale, peppers, tomatoes, and that sort of thing. And so I'm going to be planting both these gardens today. Victory Garden number 1 and Victory Garden number 2. And I'm going to start off with all my seedlings because they're probably itching to go in the ground. They've been in that greenhouse so long. And so once I get all these seedlings planted, then I will be moving on to direct sowing the rest of the seeds. So I think I'm going to start off with my tomato seedlings. And so you may notice they're still quite small. That's only because I started them quite a bit later than I normally do. But they'll still be fine for planting. And so basically how this works is I'll start off in this corner. And what you do is you lay your square foot down and then press down on it. Really press down on it and then lift. And I don't know if you can see, but there's kind of an indent along the perimeter of the square foot that you just pressed into the ground. And so for tomatoes, you would plant one of them in the middle of this square foot. And then once you plant that, you go over to the next one, and so line up the side where the other side was, and then press again. Take it off, and you can see there's another indent and another square foot, and you would plant your other tomato in the center of this. So I'm going to plant these tomatoes. And so as you can see, I planted them in soil blocks, which is a great way to start your seedlings. Just going to plant it in the middle of here. There we go. This one goes in the middle right here. And this pressed into the soil. And this just goes planted right in here. And so on and so forth. Okay, I got all my tomatoes planted. About 60 of them in total. And now I'm going to plant sweet potato slips. And so these sweet potato slips need to be planted 1 foot apart and about 4 to 6 inches deep. Okay, sweet potatoes are planted. Altogether I had about 40 sweet potato slips. And so that took up a good section of this part of the garden. Okay, next up I'm going to plant my peppers, both the bell peppers and the chili peppers. And so they require 1 foot of spacing each as well. And so I'm going to do that now. Okay, I think that's enough bell peppers. I got 24 of them, a couple dozen, and I'm going to have the rest of the chili peppers on this side over here. But in between them, I found out that ginger is a good companion plant for peppers. And so I think I'm going to plant this ginger in between the two types of peppers. First ginger. Second ginger. It's about 1 foot apart. And now I'm just going to have my hot peppers on this side of the ginger. Okay, peppers are planted, and now this next plant that I'm going to be planting is known as garden huckleberries, also known as wonderberries. I've never grown them before, but they are related to tomatoes, but they make little black purplish berries that are only edible when ripe, but they can be used to make jams or just for snacking on. And so I'm definitely excited about this one. Okay, so I've already gridded this area, and now it's time for planting them. Garden huckleberries are all planted. Okay, so next up I have eggplants. And so these are going to go on this side of the garden huckleberries. Okay, so next up we have these ground cherries. And so ground cherries actually grow to be pretty large plants. And so they require a minimum of 2 feet spacing. So that doesn't work for square foot gardening, but you can still use the square foot seeding square to measure out 2 feet. So instead of planting every foot like one here and one here, you can actually go one here, skip this space, and then plant another one over here, and the same going this way. If you catch my drift. Okay, so I'm spacing these 2 feet apart. Okay, so that is, I believe, all the seedlings that I'm planting in this garden. And so the rest will be roots like potatoes, and also, of course, the seeds that are going to be direct sown. So everything seems to be looking pretty thirsty. And so I think I'm just going to give this a water before I move on to the rest of the planting. Okay, so next up we'll be jumping over to this garden, and I'll be planting broccoli and cauliflower in this space. Okay, I planted the broccolis on this side, and over on this side I'm going to plant cauliflower, and in between them I'll just have something else. Hey Sam! Okay, so I got all the seedlings I was meaning to plant planted. I still have potatoes to plant, and of course all the seeds to direct sow, but it's getting late, so I'll save that for another day. Call it a day. Alright, so now is the time to plant my potatoes. And so I got these purple seed potatoes, and also this bag of grocery store potatoes that had all sprouted eyes on them. So these should be good to plant as well. I've done that before with good success. And I'm going to be planting them right here next to my garlic. So potatoes also require 1 foot of spacing apart per tuber, and so that's what I'm going to be doing. Seeding square again, and planting 1 potato per square foot. Alright, so the potatoes are planted, and I had transplanted some leeks from over there into here because I needed them to be companion plants between the potatoes and the carrots on this side, which I'm about to plant. So I'm moving on to the seeds, and I'm going to actually be using the seeding square to direct sow the seeds. Okay, so here's how the actual seeding part works. I'm going to be planting carrot seeds. And so you would find the carrots in the planting guide, which is under 16 plants per square foot, which means you would plant carrot seeds into each of these red circles, which are 16 per square foot. And how it works is press this into the soil just like before. And then take your little poker thingy, and this has a depth on it, so obviously you're not planting carrots 1 inch deep. So basically kind of eyeball 1/4 of this inch deep, so maybe like that, and like that, so on and so forth. And it comes with a little funnel which you just put over your holes that you just poked. Use the little scoop to scoop out a few seeds, like that. And now you just drop them into the hole. And do the same as before. Okay, now after you've done that, just take the seeding square off, find where your holes are, and kind of pinch them closed. Move on to the next square. Okay, carrots are planted, and now I think you basically get the idea of how the seeding square works for square foot gardening on a large plot like this one. And so I'm going to take a break from filming and get the rest of this planted, and I will update you when I'm done. Alright, Victory Garden number 1 is all planted. And so I had actually transplanted some of these calendula and put them all along the outside edge to draw in pollinators. So what do we got? We got Jerusalem artichokes, which I planted earlier. Brown cherries. Here's where I sowed the carrot seeds. And I had transplanted the leeks over here because they're a good companion plant with carrots. And the potatoes, which I planted here. And here is my garlic. And over here are all the garden huckleberries. And these are eggplants. And here's my strawberries, rhubarb. Under this pole, I planted cucamelons. So, very hopeful for that one. Over here, I planted okra and some more sunflowers over here. And also, here is where I planted the peppers, chili peppers. And here is a ginger. These are bell peppers. Here are my tomatoes. All along here. And over here I have sweet potatoes, bunch of sweet potatoes. And over here is where I had the artichokes interplanted with onions. And that's this garden in a nutshell. So all I have left is to plant Victory Garden number 2, and then we're set to go. I don't think I'm going to record this one because I kind of get the idea of how to plant a large vegetable plot using the square foot method now that I showed you. And yeah, probably get started on this tomorrow and take things from there. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this video helpful on how to do square foot gardening on a large scale. And hope you have yourself a good day, and until next time, happy gardening everyone!